Welcome to Our Town, a 30-minute podcast brought to you by Best Bark Communications, a small but fierce client-centered marketing company powered by decades of experience and well-established business networks.
This is Andy Ockershausen, and this is Our Town. And we are delighted and probably a little overwhelmed to have the man that started Washington Nightlife as our very special guest, and the woman who made Washington Nightlife a big part of our town. That's Mike O'Hara and the lovely and talented former, Countess of Italy, Linda Roth. Maybe she wasn't a countess. She was to me a Countess of Italy. But Linda and Michael are old friends, worked together for years. And Mike, I ran into the first time in the 60s, the mid-60s, Mike, which I hate to tell you, that's 60 years ago. That we were both children.
63 is when I got here.
From Los Angeles.
Well, I came here from Japan. I was a naval officer. And
that I never knew. And which our Navy or the Japanese?
I was in
Navy?
the American Navy, serving in Japan, and I had a top secret clearance, and I was supposed to go to Vietnam, and then they had the assassination of the Diem brothers who were running Vietnam, and they decided they didn't want to send anybody with a top secret to Vietnam, and so they didn't know what to do with me, so they brought me to Washington.
The Navy sent you here then?
Yes.
Had you any idea what you were getting into? I mean,
Well, I ended up...
The government town.
I ended up at Naval Security, which is now Homeland, up by American University.
Know it quite well.
And I was a courier. I ran the motor pool, but I found that there were a lot of duties for young officers that were volunteered. You didn't get paid, but no one wanted to do. So I volunteered for all the things like Cherry Blossom Festival, escorts, and all kinds of things. And ended up a courier for the White House and the naval station. And all. So I got all these great duties, and and I used to. And then there were no parties going on for young officers and no bars. So I used to, when I took my messages, and your lovely wife just reminded me, I took these top secret messages. Usually they'd give you a manila envelope and you take it. No, they didn't give you a pouch. They just gave you an envelope and take it somewhere. So I got a briefcase and handcuffs, and in the bag with the top secret were party invitations. So if I'd run across a beautiful woman, I'd pull out a party invitation and give it to her at the Pentagon or wherever. So that's...
What a promoter.
So I started that. So
Michael,
that was 1963.
Of all the things I've known about you over the years, the Navy thing is new to me. Coming from Japan is very new to me. I don't know why you never talked about it before, but it's a great thing. But you grew up in Hollywood, or North Hollywood, and went to school there in Los Angeles.
I was born in Hollywood in 1939, December 26th. And, well, that's a good story in itself, because we lived in Glendale, my mother and dad. My mother was an actress, not a successful one that you would know. And my dad was a band leader, later a shoe salesman. But my mother wanted her son to be an actor. So they lived a few blocks from the Glendale Hospital. So she made my dad schlep her all the way to Hollywood, 8 miles away, so that her son could have Hollywood on his birth certificate. Now, it never worked out that I became an actor.
Cedars of Sinai?
No, Hollywood Hospital. Oh. But the funny part about it did turn out later in life that was interesting on my bio, things that I did being born in Hollywood. But I went to grammar school in North Hollywood and high school and junior high in Glendale.
And then you went to college there and then moved. Is that correct?
I went to USC my freshman year. I didn't get in the fraternity I wanted, so I left and went to a junior college for a year and a half, and then I ended up at the University of Arizona.
That was USC's loss, incidentally.
Well, maybe, but I really was.
It was Watt's loss anyway.
It was a rich kid school, and I was not rich, so
a very rich kid.
I didn't really fit in there, but Arizona turned to be a wonderful place for me in the desert, and that's where I blossomed, and life turned out great.
Were you in an NROTC? How'd you get in the Navy?
I was 1 year NROTC was required. I got in the Navy because my mother, because I had been to 3 colleges and I was a 5-year student. My mother called me one day from Glendale And she said, "You got a letter from Uncle Sam." I said, "Open it." And I was drafted in the Army. I said, "Rip it up." I went that day down. I wanted to join the Marines, but there wasn't a recruiting base. So there was a Navy recruit. I joined the Navy
immediately
as an enlisted man.
It's the way to beat the draft.
So I joined the Navy, and I was in the Navy. So the minute school was out, and I wasn't even sure I was graduating because I was a borderline student, I went off to boot camp for the Navy. I was an enlisted man, went to boot camp. And then I realized while I was in boot camp, there was a young officer that was in charge of our enlisted company. And he said, "You shouldn't, you're a college graduate," because I did graduate, much to my surprise. And
you're too modest, Michael.
He said, "You should be an officer." And I'll do my 2 years and get out and go to law school or something. So he said, "Next time you get a leave, we'll get in civilian clothes and we'll go to some bars." So he took me to a bar in San Diego where the enlisted man went, and then he took me to a bar where the officers went. And the next day I took OCS test and got passed and went to officer candidate school. So they sent me home.
Yeah. The ranks live better than the unranked.
Well, they certainly had a different quality of
always the Navy. Well, Mike, of all these years, I'm sure Linda Roth, I haven't ignored you, Linda. You've heard these, but it's new to me. You obviously knew all of his career.
Oh, yeah.
And you still did business with him.
In
spite of that. For every way. But hearing his story about being checking our city from the inside before people even knew who Mike O'Hara was, you had an idea for the city of Washington, which, let's face this, in the 60s, it was a very laid-back town compared to now.
Well,
60 years ago, Mike.
Yeah, something that came up just recently, someone reminded me. Of course, I'm a big Facebook guy. I have all this stuff on Facebook. But someone reminded me, in 1969 in Washington, we had a bar called the Gentleman 2. And
18th and M.
Yes, was the famous La Salle du Bois restaurant
I knew it
turned
quite
into
French restaurant.
A saloon. But in 1969, you could not stand up and drink in a bar in Washington, a restaurant in Washington D.C. And also, you had to close at midnight on Saturday night. So Jimmy Desmond, my partner, and I, and 3 other bars decided to, as a friend of the court, sue the ABC board to clarify and change the laws. And we won.
Is that right? It was 69.
So before 1969, you had to only sit down and drink, and you couldn't carry your drink from one bar to the next.
Right.
And we were a singles bar, and the idea was to mingle. So there were a lot
didn't they have a rule you couldn't order a drink if you had one on the table?
That I don't recall. There
was only one drink at a time. If you only had half, you had to wait till you finished it to get another one.
That's quite possibly, but that wasn't an issue. But
no, the issue was the standing.
The standing was our issue, and we won, and then we changed some other.
Right.
We changed the Saturday law, and then on Sunday you could only drink beer and wine. You couldn't drink hard liquor. So all those laws, my partner,
they were archaic.
Well, they were blue laws. So Jimmy and I, there was a great attorney, Sam Block, that handled ABC issues, and we were a friend of the ABC board. They weren't mad at us for suing.
I understand that.
We kept suing and kept winning, and so eventually all these, but nobody remembers that. You couldn't, in 1969,
I remember when it changed vividly.
You couldn't stand up. And even Clyde's, the famous Clyde's that opened in 64, that was not
I know that
you
quite
could
well.
not stand up and drink.
Well, I went to the Clyde's opening around that time, and Stuart Davidson and all those guys. Wasn't Bondbreast in that deal? But
he worked there. He was never an owner, I don't think.
He was not an owner?
He may have been. I'm not aware of it.
Well, one of the things I remember is the man who eventually became president of ABC Television was working as a bar helper named Tony Thermopoulos. He became the big shot at ABC TV and the world. I don't know what happened to him. But, Mike, our city was different then, and that liquor law changed the whole concept of Washington nightclub.
Well, it was different, and in many respects, also because Virginia was dry back then.
That's right. You couldn't get
and
it
not
right.
till many years later, Virginia was dry. So everybody from Virginia, especially all us young military guys who were stationed in Virginia, had to go to the district. You could not buy a drink. There was no bars in Virginia. So you're mint and gold because back then, Sundays you were packed. Mondays you were. Today, nightclubs, and Linda probably has a better handle, they only do business sometimes on weekends. Now, that's not restaurants, but clubs, they don't even try for Mondays and Tuesdays that I'm aware of.
Well, there was a saying that they were killing more Marines on US 1 than they were in Vietnam because the traffic problem, because they were all coming to Washington.
Well, they used to come up from Quantico.
Yeah.
In the buses sometimes.
Absolutely.
I'll never forget at Christmas, we had 2 busloads of Marines came up on Christmas Eve. And there were 4 girls in the bar and about 200 Marine officer candidates.
What was the bar? Champion?
Gentleman 2.
Well, we're going to get
This was in the 60s.
You had Gentlemen's too, but that was way before Champions, correct?
Champions
When
opened.
did Linda join you?
Linda walked into my office in 1976. Tramps had recently opened. It was getting successful, but it wasn't anything like it became. And Linda walked in for a management job, and I didn't really have a management job, but she had such a unbelievable personality and
Still does.
and still does. And she was so nice that I created a job of my marketing director, and she made Tramps famous. And the stunts and things that she did, like getting Fleetwood Mac there and Stallone.
You put them on the map.
And all these famous people. But that's all because of Linda. And we had a newsletter, and she wrote that, and she did all that stuff. So Linda came to me in 76, and then when I opened Champions, Linda was in charge of, we had 20, when I sold Champions in 91, there were 24 Champions in Marriott's and other places. And Linda ran the marketing for the whole company.
Well, you sold the company too, did you not?
I owned, it was a public company.
Right.
I mean, it was a public company.
Was it a penny stock at one time?
It started as a penny stock.
I remember that.
And and then it reverse split. But by the time I retired in 91, Linda was there and stayed on, and she ran all the Champions, the marketing and stuff.
Well, we can't talk enough about her, but I want to. But I want to ask you another question about Champions and all the things you did for us at Channel 50. Remember, we had the show out there in Virginia. Well, I remember you painted the alley green.
That was a Champion. Yeah, we painted it green. And
in
then,
the city.
Yes.
The one in Georgetown.
Yeah, and we called it Champions Alley. But that building had sat where Champions opened in 83. That building had sat empty for 50 years. And it had been a place that people didn't go up that alley. It was dangerous.
The hardware guy was on the corner, right?
Weaver. He was on the corner, Jim Weaver.
Jim Weaver, right.
And so, but everyone told me that it wouldn't work. First of all, no one had heard of sports bars. But more importantly, forgetting that, no one said that we could get them to go up was a 12-foot wide alley, 148 feet deep, that we could get people to come up. Well, I had a feeling that, and I don't know the exact amount, but the third edition at the end of the alley, their rent was in double digits. And my rent was less than $1,000. And I figured that I could hire Joe Theismann for $12,000 to pass out flyers at the end of the alley. I'm being facetious.
No, I know what you mean.
And
still be ahead.
And fortunately, our dear friend, Linda's and yours and mine, Pete Wysocki, really took it upon himself, and with Charlie Brotman, to make it work. And he got the Redskins to come, and Charlie had the opening, and from the day it opened, it was a success. In fact, it became, for its size, the size of the space, 2,000 square feet approximately, we were the largest grossing in the country, selling beer, wine, and liquor. The largest in the country for our size. And it was amazingly successful.
And then you spread Champions throughout. Didn't you have a deal with Marriott?
That you could put some Marriott executives wandered into the bar one day, and they couldn't believe it was like a Monday or a Tuesday, some night, and they weren't even open on Sundays and Mondays and so forth, and they were just taken with the success.
The atmosphere was incredible.
The atmosphere, and we used only real memorabilia, and it was the kind of place where everyone knows your name, and the friendliness, and all the Redskins were there, and I can only imagine if baseball had been here then, because we would have had all the ball players.
Well, you had the hockey guys come in there.
All the hockey guys were there. We had their
remember
pictures.
That vividly.
And the Bullets. Linda was personal friends with Greavy and Kupchak, and those guys, and those people came. So it was just packed every night with celebrities and this and that. And it just became an instant success. And then because the media picked up on the sports bars through Linda's work,
it was a real first.
It became a story. Every publication did a story about it.
Well, we lived through that with you. We, meaning WMAL, because of Pete and because of Ken Beatrice, and the town suddenly became sports aware. It was more than just a game. It was a Monday through Friday world in sports, and your bar was part of it. And we're going to be back and talk about that. And I got to bring Linda in because she's held back because of you, Michael, but that's been true for years. This is Andy Ockershausen, and this is Our Town, and we have Mike O'Hara and Linda Roth.
This is Sonny Jorgensen. Got a confession to make. I let my wife drag me to one of those Mike Collins estate planning seminars. Like I don't have enough on my plate with a certain football team. Actually, it wasn't too bad. In fact, we both learned a whole lot about how to protect our kids and grandkids down the road and to take care of ourselves right now. So if you get one of Mike's invitations in the mail, go. I'm glad I did. Get all the information and register online at MikeCollins.com. That's MikeCollins.com.
You're listening to Our Town with Andy Ockershausen. Brought to you by Best Bark Communications.
This is Andy Ockershausen. This is Our Town, and we're talking to Mike O'Hara. And we have not talked to Linda Roth. But Linda, you lived through all these things. You must have been a baby when you went to work for Michael in the 70s.
I was a babe. And in the woods, that is. But
no, you were a babe.
Right. When I went to apply for the job working as a manager of a disco, that was only because I wanted something in the evening so I could still look for a legitimate job during the day.
Wait, had you done some broadcasting work before that?
Yeah, my first job out of college was at HFS. Working for Jake Einstein and the entire Einstein clan.
What do they call that? The metal sound? What do they call? They had a name for that. It was Jake Epstein or Jake.
Jake Einstein. Yeah, Einstein. They had it was all progressive. A lot of progressive rock. And there was the psychedelic right across the street from the studio. So saw Nils Lofgren playing real early on.
But then you got in this idea to get into disco help management and so forth, and you applied to Michael. Were you going to be a waitress? No, you were bigger than that.
Well, I applied for the job to be a manager. The interview took, I'm not kidding, 45 seconds. There's no way he was going to hire me to be a manager of his club. I really wasn't right
Didn't
for
work.
it. But then he called me back the next day and he said, I saw on your resume you have a lot of writing skills, because I'd been writing for some of the local publications. And he said, I want to start an international discotheque association, and we're going to have a newsletter. And I want to make you the editor of the newsletter. Right out of college, you're going to be editor.
The next day.
Yeah, like that. I said, I can do that. I said, I don't know anything about discos.
Talent and how to use it. Then you were more talented as a writer than you would have been as a waitress.
That's sure. That is for sure. Although that is how I got through college, and let me tell you, that's the best way to get through college too.
You'll hear Janice Ockershausen talk about her years as a waitress and know what she had to do to pay her way through.
Develop a lot of great skills with people to take you through the rest of your life.
I don't know where she went. She should be. He's our producer, but she is. But Linda, then you started with him to promote. At that time, what was he promoting? Tramps?
It was Tramps. It was a little discotheque in the heart of Georgetown. And I remember I had people come in and say, this is Tramps, this is how big it is, because we were everywhere. Yeah.
I know, you couldn't dance, and that was the beauty of the club. It was crowded. Even if it wasn't crowded, it was crowded.
It was intimate. And we always had DJs that were trained by, they grew up looking at Billboard and what was going on, and we took them up to New York all the time to see what was going on there. And we were always a 2-point Billboard reporter on the disco charts, which is a pretty big deal.
Oh, believe me.
I'm going to interject. Andy, one of the DJs Linda got to come in was Lillian Carter, the mother of the president, came in and DJed, thanks to Linda.
It's wonder she didn't get the president, too. How about the brother, Jimmy Carter? Wasn't that his name? The one that the peanut.
Billy.
Yeah.
But Linda, you did so much with Tramps to put them on the map, but that led you to start your own business. You started with Michael as an employee, but then you ended up with Linda Roth Associates.
I did. I actually started working a lot in restaurants and bars because that's what I knew. And then one of Michael's dear friends came into town who was doing a computer show, and Michael turned him on to me for helping to promote a computer show. I said, what do I know about computers? He said, I'll teach you about computers, which is exactly the same thing Michael said to me when I said, I don't know anything about discos. He goes, I can teach you about discos. And you can take it from there. So
but you knew how to get the ink.
Yep.
And you knew how to open the doors and so forth. And that's a God-given talent, I think. That's when I remember you did the thing, the Bar Stars. That was with Tommy Curtis and a group at
the Polo Club. It was another great American bar star evening.
And that's a great American bar that folded too, right?
Yeah.
I don't think it was a saloon, though.
It was supposed to be a a private club, although not exactly private, but it was in the Carlton Hotel, which is now the St. Regis.
16th and K.
And it was when they did some demolition there because when they were doing the renovation, and they discovered a gold mine. Literally, they had those ceilings. If you see what the St. Regis ceilings look like in the lobby, that's exactly what it looked like on the lower level too. And they brought in a guy who did gold gilding painting for those for the ceiling pieces, and then also they found caryatids, which are like Greek statues that were hidden behind the walls that they didn't know were there when they did the demolition. So all of a sudden, the general manager of the hotel said, "Yeah, you guys got a lease for a year. Then I want this space back."
They're using it at this time. Is the space being used?
It's
because it was downstairs, as I recall.
Yeah, and it's event and meeting space now, so it's not a club anymore.
Well, in your many successes, some of them are still alive. That one died, unfortunately, and so did Tramps. But you had nothing to do with that. But you've done so much, Linda. Now, I mean, so many bars and restaurants, and then how many restaurants have you opened?
Ooh.
Would it be a good number, Michael?
150, 200.
So many
restaurants.
Still
Probably
alive.
more than that because a lot of the restaurants are open up multiple units here. I mean, Morton's at one point we had 8 Morton's.
God, I
in
remember
the area.
that, Linda.
Del Frisco's got 3, so there's a lot of Matchbox where they're up to 13. So I mean, there's a lot.
Well, one of the things that has always impressed me, people use you because you are the lady of contacts when it comes to PR. And that's what I grew up knowing about. I grew up way before you, unfortunately, but I do know how important it is to have somebody with you that knows the right people, how to get things either done or printed. And you're my female Charlie Brotman, and that's not a put down, but
I take it
Charlie
as a
did it for nothing. You get paid.
Well, sometimes that's always the idea, but and I try and pay that forward with the people that work with me at my company. And one of our goals is a person to meet and a place to eat. You know, every single month we have to have those goals. So and there's never a lack of new places to eat and tons of people in this town. And it's always because we're such a transient town here, and everybody's important. That's the one thing that you learn. Whoever you meet here is important.
That's Linda. Well, of all the places that you still have some favorites that are still alive. Obviously, you do.
Oh.
Did you? I know the Mortons. Do you still represent Mortons?
No, I
casually.
don't. It's no, they have new ownership there,
okay.
But and there's some favorite. I mean, I love Matchbox, as mentioned, at Del Frisco's, but there's some. You know, I live right up the street from Martin's Tavern, where it all started with Tramps when it was the Carriage House.
Do I know it?
And Billy Martin, and you can still find me there most Friday nights.
Well, Janice's office is down on M Street, and so we've been to Billy Martin's Tavern. I remember my friend Bud Doggett used to go there every Sunday for brunch. That was his normal Sunday in life, was Billy Martin. Well, that name is so familiar. And he's the third Billy Martin, is that not correct?
I believe so, yep.
Of the families that's owned that tavern for 150 years or whatever it is, Mike?
Way back.
A long time. Linda, what about, I remember meeting your mother. She was from Baltimore, and you were from Baltimore. I was telling Michael, was something that we did with Pete Wysocki with the Brazilian, a carnival night somewhere. I don't know whether you were promoting or were just there. Something we went to where Wysocki danced the whole night. I don't think he knew a soul there, but it didn't stop him.
He loved to dance. He absolutely loved to dance. Actually, my mother never missed a promotion at Tramps. My mom and dad came in from Baltimore for, you name it. We had Pele there. Maybe that's when he was dancing. Maybe that's the Brazilian connection. Although I remember with Pele, he liked to sit in a quiet corner, and I said, "Nobody can see you're here." And I said, "You have to come up and dance." And he said, "I don't dance." I go, "Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do.
Yeah, you do." Well, the Tramps was tough to get on the floor because it was so crowded. It's elbow to elbow, but that's what made it successful. And you promoted that too.
Well, it was always successful.
You're not going to be alone at Tramps.
That's where the original Bullet Cheerleaders auditions was at Tramps.
Linda started that. That was the first cheerleading squad. She worked with Bob Ferry, who was the general manager. And there was the first, I think it was 78 or 77, Linda. It was after the championship, and they're considered the first cheerleading squad.
Yeah, it was in 77 because that was the year. The first year it was the first NBA cheerleaders, and that was their first year, and we won the championship that year.
And Linda started it.
Won it in 78 in Seattle, and they came back in Seattle and won it here the following year. They were great years and great times for the city.
Right.
But Michael, of all the things that I know about you is that you have one of the world's greatest collection. I don't want to say trivia, but paraphernalia, would that be a good word?
Well, I used to have an enormous amount of sports memorabilia. I had warehouses, but I sold, after I sold Champions. Part of the pleasure in life for me in those days was finding original memorabilia to hang in the various Champions. Plus, so many athletes donated autographed stuff.
Oh, you had pictures of everybody.
And then I had a personal collection of Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers memorabilia, ray guns and things, which I donated to the Smithsonian in '91. And a great part of it is out at the Dulles Smithsonian. There's a whole case of my stuff. And a little sign that says...
You mean that's Hughes-y?
Hughes-y Center.
Udvar-Hazy.
Yeah.
It's out there.
I can't pronounce it either.
So anyway, I had this collection of ray guns. I have some stuff left, some that is personal. I mean, I had the uniform Gary Cooper wore when he played Lou Gehrig in Pride of the Yankees. But it was so valuable that I don't entertain in my home, so it was just sitting there. So eventually I sold a lot of stuff. I still have stuff, but not like I did. I mean, I had warehouses full of stuff. And
I thought you captured a lot of things on either videotape.
Oh, I have photos.
Photos.
Oh, I don't. Yeah. Oh, I have 20,000 photos on Facebook. I mean, I don't consider that just my personal stuff. Yes, right. I have all that stuff. Scrapbooks.
If we ever want to know anything, we ask you. You probably got it on film.
Well, not so much film as I have some film.
Right, but you have it
stuff from your show, from the Redskins show and stuff.
Absolutely, all the shows we did.
And Pete and George Stark. But most of my stuff is still images. I have an enormous collection of 20,000 at least on Facebook. So,
well, is it cataloged? Does it have a?
It's cataloged, organized, cataloged by album. So the history of and Linda's a great part of that history.
Well, Linda made you, Michael, what you are.
She certainly did.
She put you in the map.
He used to have a T-shirt that said, "I'm nearly famous." It was from an ad for something that he saw, and he made T-shirts.
Thanks to Linda.
And he wore that? No. Michael always looked like $1 million. I remember those days and all the clubs and bars that he was connected with. We're just about out of time for today. I'm Andy Ockershausen, and we'll continue with Linda and Michael the next episode here on Our Town.
You've been listening to Our Town Season 1 with your host, Andy Ockershausen. New Our Town podcast episodes are released each Tuesday and Thursday. We welcome your comments and suggestions on how you like the show or who you'd like to hear from next. Catch us on Facebook at Our Town DC or visit our website at OurTownDC.com. Our special thanks to WMAL Radio in Washington, D.C. for hosting our podcasts.